The morning sun cast long shadows across the obsidian streets of Carthax, the apex city, where only the strongest predator species were permitted to dwell. Selene walked calmly through those streets, her small human frame dwarfed by the towering architecture designed for beings 3 times her size. Behind her trotted 6 cubs, their scales gleaming, their young claws clicking against the stone. The largest cub, Varek, stayed closest to her side. His crimson eyes watched everything with the intensity his species was known for. But every few steps, he would glance up at the human woman, as if to confirm she was still there. "Miss Selene," Varek rumbled in his developing vocal cords, the sound like gravel sliding down a mountain. "The others are following us again." Selene didn't turn around. She didn't need to. She could feel them, the presence of dozens, perhaps hundreds of warrior-caste Krathagzi, the apex predators of this sector. They moved through the side streets, across rooftops, their massive forms attempting stealth, but failing against her trained awareness. "I know, Varek," she said softly, adjusting the small pack on the shoulders of one of the smaller cubs. "They always do." It had been this way for 6 months now, ever since the incident. The galaxy had laughed when humanity first made contact. Soft-skinned, weak-boned, lacking natural weapons or armor, humans were classified as prey species, barely worth acknowledging in the grand hierarchy of carnivorous civilizations. The Krathagzi, in particular, had found the notion of human sentience amusing. Their empire spanned 100 worlds, built on the simple principle that might determined right, and the strong consumed the weak. Then the Krathagzi made their mistake. They raided a human colony world, expecting easy pickings. What they found instead was something their predator brains couldn't comprehend. The humans didn't scatter. They didn't hide. They formed ranks, created killing zones, and turned their supposed weakness into terrifying advantage. Humans didn't need natural weapons when they could craft ones that split atoms. They didn't need thick hides when they could coordinate across vast distances with perfect precision. The raiding party that had numbered 3,000 returned with only 47 survivors. Each one bore scars, not just on their bodies, but in their minds. They spoke in trembling voices of the humans' persistence, their refusal to stop, their eyes that held no fear, only cold calculation. The Krathagzi Emperor had immediately sued for peace. More than that, he had requested something unprecedented. He asked for a human to come to Carthax, to teach their young what it meant to survive against an enemy who should have been prey. Selene had volunteered. She was a veteran, a former colonial marine who had seen action on 17 worlds. She had the scars, the experience, and most importantly, the temperament. Because teaching predator cubs wasn't about strength, it was about understanding that strength came in forms they'd never imagined. Now, 6 months later, she walked the morning route to the Imperial Academy with her charges, and the entire warrior caste followed at a respectful distance. "Why do they follow?" asked Mira, one of the smaller cubs, her voice still carrying a child's curiosity despite her species' fearsome reputation. Selene smiled. "Because they're learning, just like you are." Varek's crest flared slightly, a sign of confusion in his species. "But we are cubs. They are warriors. What can they learn from watching you walk us to school?" "Everything," Selene replied. She stopped at an intersection, waiting as a transport hauler rumbled past. The cubs instinctively formed up around her, a defensive pattern she'd taught them in their first week. Behind them, on the rooftops, she could see the silhouettes of at least 20 warriors, watching. She continued, "Your people are the greatest predators in this sector. Your claws can rend steel, your hides can deflect most small arms fire, and your instincts make you perfect hunters. But you know what?" "What?" the cubs asked in near unison. "Humanity survived on a death world without any of those things. We didn't have claws, so we made knives. We didn't have thick skin, so we made armor. We weren't fast, so we learned endurance that let us chase prey for days until it collapsed from exhaustion. And most importantly, we learned that the strongest weapon isn't the one you're born with. It's the one between your ears." Varek's eyes widened. It was the look he got when he was really thinking, processing information in that brilliant young mind. They reached the academy gates, where other cubs were arriving with their own escorts, all Krathxi warriors, all following the example Selene had set. But those warriors parted like water as she approached, showing deference that would have been unthinkable 7 months ago. The academy headmaster, a scarred veteran named Krathzul who had lost an arm in the human conflict, waited at the entrance. He bowed to Selene, a deep bow of respect, not the shallow nod given to equals. "Teacher Selene," he rumbled, "your students performed excellently in yesterday's tactical simulation." "They're good learners," Selene replied, placing a gentle hand on Varric's scaled head. Varric especially. He's starting to think 3 moves ahead. Varric's crest fanned out in pride. But Selene noticed the way Krathzul looked at the young cub with hope. The Krathsi were beginning to understand that the galaxy was changing, that raw strength alone wouldn't be enough anymore. As the cubs filed into the academy, Varric lingered for a moment. "Miss Selene, will you teach us about guerrilla warfare today?" "After basic mathematics," she said firmly. "A warrior who can't calculate ammunition expenditure is just a berserker." He chirped the Krathsi equivalent of a laugh and bounded after his classmates. Selene turned to walk back through the city, and as expected, the warriors followed. But this time, one approached. A massive female, her scales bearing the insignia of a battle group commander. "Human Selene," she said, her voice carrying that rumbling respect. "I fought at the Battle of Proxima Reach. I led the initial assault." Selene studied her, recognizing the look in her eyes. "You were one of the survivors?" "Yes. I watched my entire cohort fall to your kind. We outnumbered you 20 to 1. Quote, 23 to 1, Selene corrected quietly. "I was there too." The warrior's eyes widened, then narrowed in understanding. A moment of recognition passed between them, not of enemies, but of soldiers who had both seen the same hell. "You teach our cubs well," the warrior said finally. "You teach them to think like humans, to see weakness as merely another kind of strength waiting to be discovered." "I teach them to survive," Selene replied. "Because the galaxy is bigger than any one species, and the ones who survive are those who adapt." The warrior bowed, deeper than even Krathzul had, and stepped back. Selene walked on through the city, the morning sun warm on her skin, and behind her, every warrior of Carthax followed, not because they feared her, not because protocol demanded it, but because she was teaching their children, and in doing so, she was teaching them the most important lesson humanity had ever learned. Predators ruled through strength, but humans had conquered a hostile galaxy through something far more dangerous: the refusal to accept that any challenge was impossible, and the intelligence to turn every disadvantage into a weapon. In the apex city, built by the greatest predators in the sector, a single human woman walked alone but never unguarded, teaching the future generation that true strength wasn't about being the biggest monster in the room, it was about being the smartest survivor.